Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to the channel, and today we're looking at Jeff's test in Saw the Game. This time we'll focus on all the death traps and torture methods and take a more detailed look at them. This is a slight change compared to how we used to do it in the previous videos, but come on, let's be real, you weren't here for this story. At the beginning of the level, as we're walking around with Abby, who we saved from the furnace trap in the last part, we walk up a staircase and come across a barrel. These traps are similar to the needles in the toilets. We have to fish around for a key. I think I already said this in a previous video, but it would be really easy to just pour the acid out of the barrel so that you wouldn't injure your entire arm. Like with the needle traps, you can basically just click anywhere on the screen, which is why I think I beat my own record here. Just a little bit different. Let's see how fast we can do this one. Mark the time, let's go. Oh, what? No, the game didn't even begin properly. This trap is basically a larger version of what we watched in the third movie, just that here the key inside isn't fake but actually helps us get through the door. By the way, how I remember this trap is that the key can sit in here beforehand because it will also be dissolved by the acid. This is where something interesting happens in the game. When we walk up here, this door closes, so it could be that one of John Kramer's assistants quickly tossed in the key and then ran away, shutting the door behind him or her. I'm giving the game the benefit of the doubt here. Shortly after we complete the acid barrel, we enter this room where there's a door leading into the main death game, the Impaler. The door is locked by a padlock, and to get the correct combination, we need to activate some lights in the upper floor looking into the theater. For that, we need some light bulbs, and wow, do we make the biggest tour ever to get these lights. A few things to note here before we continue. This is a mechanical lock, meaning that there are only 999 combinations possible. So instead of risking your life going through this whole trip that's coming up, you could maybe just guess the passcode, just run through all the combinations. But, that wouldn't be very exciting. Also, technically, you only need one light bulb and then just use it on different lights, instead of going through this Blair Witch infested house to find another one. Also, maybe just climb down from the top into the theater and we would be done with all this. Further in the level, we find something that looks quite interesting. A torture device with a chair as a main component. For some reason, the interaction prompt is in Spanish, but it's only for this one part. I'm not quite sure what happens to the person strapped in the chair, but there are a few different possibilities. First of all, there's a hole in the seat. My guess is that much like with the medieval torture devices, this is where perhaps hot coals were placed. The box on his head also has to be there for a reason, right? So my guess is that maybe there were some small insects trapped in there with him. I honestly don't know, as this torture device doesn't really look familiar to me. I mean, placing someone's head in a box could also be a form of mental torture, but that would only be effective if it's done for a longer time period, which doesn't fit into the Saw narrative at all. Sometime after, we come across another one of the blade hallways. These are kind of tough to navigate because you can't really use the camera, so when you're looking forward, it's hard to guess exactly how far the blade is still away. Now here is something that's a little bit more interesting. When we're just walking around in the hallways, we can actually see the people who failed their tests, whose remains are still in the room. In one trap, we can find a rack. This isn't the same thing we saw in Saw 3, but a medieval rack. If you missed the video where we discussed this thing in more detail, you can check it out right here. But the rack is especially nasty because most of the time it wasn't deadly, at least not in the way you think. What we see here wasn't actually the end result. Usually the arms and legs would be dislocated, which was extremely painful, but not yet the end. You could then of course continue stretching the person until, well, let's just say the limbs were rendered completely useless. But of course, the most interesting aspect of John Kramer's traps are the devices. Things like the reverse bear trap and Venus flytrap are simply iconic. But in here we also find one of the lesser known devices. This guy has a box locked around his hand. Once we knock him out, it explodes. It appears like it's related to the exploding cuffs from Saw 6, but I think this game came out before that. Of course, here it's way bigger so that we kind of have a clue about why this guy would be in danger. Now, the way the device plays out here is arguably not as bad as it would be in the movie. Here it basically causes the entire person to be blown up instantly. But in the movie it was implied that only the individual limbs would be removed by the cuffs. Either way, this is the saddest death I've had so far in this entire playthrough. Oh, you gotta be kidding me. No. Oh. One hit. You gotta be kidding me. What was also especially effective during this level was the use of booby traps. When you're walking around in the dark, usually the shine of the flashlight gives them away and makes the wire stand out much more. But when there is the standard overhead light, these become almost invisible when you're just walking around because your eyes are focusing on so many other things. I think a lot of you know this by now, but it's actually illegal to booby trap your own home. So this might come as a bit of a shock to you, but John Kramer actually committed a crime here. There's also one other noteworthy room we come by, and it shows someone who was burned alive. I've said this multiple times, but I'll say it again because a lot of people underestimate it. Burning alive is arguably the worst way to die, and it's one of the most horrific forms of torture and execution. It's not nearly the most complex, especially when you look around this house. There are a lot of creative death traps, but burning alive is one of the worst feelings of pain a human can experience. So eventually we come across a freezer that we have to enter, but we need a key, and this actually gets kind of fun. So there's this other room with a meat grinder and pigs that are moving by. We have to pick up some bricks and throw them at the carcasses. I gotta say, this part was really fun. Maybe in the next trap there will be like a ring toss or something like that. This is, oh my god, this is like a carnival game. I love this. Hey Jigsaw, more traps like this. If we hit enough pigs, we're given the key. After that, we enter the freezer and go downstairs. Here there's another one of the pig carcass puzzles. The exit is blocked by a, I don't know, what do you call this? A frame of pig carcasses? We have to move away these other bunches so that the rail is cleared all the way and we can push away the final blocker. This part was extremely frustrating because you don't have an overview of where the pigs are. If we could see it from the top, it would be much easier. Especially the first time you try to solve it, it's pretty difficult to just hit the right buttons. And after a while, it becomes impossible to see anything because apparently tap turns into a block of ice and then you're just doomed to die. So there's no way to do it organically on the first playthrough. Eventually I just wanted to cheat here, but it turns out that I couldn't because it would just take more time. By the way, there's like a massive gap in between these things, so tap could just go in between. After about 3 or 4 tries, I finally got past this room. After this we have the 2 light bulbs and can now go all the way back to where we were like a half hour ago into the room above the theater. In here we can enter the bulbs. Throughout the level we keep on hearing that we must see what's behind the curtain, and in this level we need to take it literally and go up on the stage. There we find Jeff in his trap. What I think was actually pretty cool is how this is sort of related to the trap he was in the first movie, just sort of bigger. Jeff is strapped to a big board with retractable metal rods. To get him out, we have to play an altered version of memory. There are a bunch of TVs and we have to select one of the screens at a time. They show, for example, a nail, and then we have to find which one of the screens matches that. In that case, it will be the hammer, you know, like hammer and nail. This game was far more difficult than I expected because as far as I know, there aren't any clues given to you. If you get it wrong, Jeff will be impaled in different parts of his body. Get it right and it will be retracted. Get too many wrong in a row and he will be impaled right in the face. Now I'm not gonna lie to you, you kind of just have to get a little bit lucky here. By the way, the handcuffs on Jeff are easily big enough for him to slip out. Eventually I managed to match everything. I mean, it does get easier once you start getting the first few things right. So I didn't cheat during this whole level, which may have been the worst decision of my entire life. I restarted the level just to check up on something really quick. We already have the code from our earlier playthrough, so I wanted to test if I can just enter the main trap right away. Yeah, that's fine, whatever. We're gonna totally speedrun this level. If this works, I'm gonna laugh my ass off. Oh my god. We could have skipped this whole level. You have got to be kidding me. Oh my god. An entire hour of gameplay that I could have skipped over. Why did I listen to that one comment? If I would have done it my way, we would be done with this game already. Anyways, as always, I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, make sure to smash like, smash subscribe, and I hope that I get to see you guys in the next video. Bye guys.